All right. So no problem. We'll continue with our session. In case if anybody is facing any of the difficulties, you can just use the chat box to place your issues. Okay, we'll get back and correct the situation as soon as possible. So we have the first question for the day. Which of the following options correctly represents the lung conditions in asthma and emphysema respectively? So inflammation of bronchioles and decreased respiratory surface, increased number of bronchioles and increased respiratory surface, increased respiratory surface and inflammation of bronchioles, decreased respiratory surface and inflammation of bronchioles. As usual, students, you have 1 minute to solve this question. So I will launch a poll now for you, MCQ. Okay. So hold on. What happened? 1 second. Just check into it. Yeah. Your polls are live now. You can use these polls. Okay. And let me know what do you think is the right answer. So you have 1 minute to answer this question. No, so let's make it quick. Okay, students, I will end the poll now. Okay, so let's see what's our right answer. So if you have your options already, what you have answered, so let's keep that way. So if you have wrong answers, no worries. Let's see where you went wrong. Okay, so they have asked about what is the correct representation of lung conditions. Firstly, they're asking about asthma. So when we talk about asthma, asthma is a respiratory disorder which leads to the swelling or inflammation of bronchioles, right? So when there is inflammation of bronchioles, usually asthma causes because of the allergic conditions. It can be due to allergens or inborn disorder. So usually what happens, there is excessive sensitization of cells near the bronchioles, which leads to allergy or inflammatory reactions. So that's where a person has shortness of breath, okay, and which leads to difficulty in breathing. But when it comes to emphysema, is a classical example where a person gets this disorder when he has an excessive smoking habits like cigarettes. So emphysema leads to decreased respiratory surfaces because of the deposition of tar. So that will in turn affect a person's ability to fix the enough oxygen into his system. So that is called as emphysema. So let us save our option. So we know what asthma leads to. Asthma leads to inflammation in bronchioles, whereas emphysema leads to decrease in respiratory surface. So what do we have an option? Inflammation of bronchioles and decreased respiratory surface. So this option goes well, right? Let's say other option. Increased number of bronchioles and increased respiratory surface. There is nothing with increased number of bronchioles. So this option is wrong. Increased respiratory surface and inflammation of bronchioles. So you can see here, they've asked about asthma. So asthma does not lead to increase in respiratory surface, and emphysema do not lead to inflammation of bronchioles. So the third option is wrong. So when it comes to fourth option, decreased respiratory surface, when it comes to asthma, it's for inflammation of bronchioles. It's not the increase or decrease of respiratory surface. And when it comes to emphysema, it's decreased respiratory surface, not inflammation of bronchioles. Even though first and second option looks similar, but the term, respectively, okay, respectively is very, very important, right? This term. So that says we have to choose the first option. So, okay. All right, students. So we have the second question for now. Which of the following is an occupational respiratory disorder? So anthracis, silicosis, okay, botulism, emphysema. So these are your 4 options. Again, the time is ticking. You have 1 minute to answer this question. So I will relaunch the poll. You can now answer this question. The polls are live. All right, students, your time is up. 1 minute is up. So let's see if you have your right option or the wrong option. Okay. So what is an occupational respiratory disorder? See what happens when people work in very hazardous environmental conditions. So one of the famous examples or popular examples that you can pick it up from your surroundings is when you construct the house or when you get your nice stones like granites polished for the floors as well as for your kitchen or the walls, you might have seen the laborers who are excessively spending long hours in the dust, okay, for grinding these stones or polishing these stones. Same goes with the chiselers. And most of the people who work in marble or granite factories or stone industries, or the people who work in some of the mining, right? So here what happens is when they're prolongedly exposed to certain hazardous environment without a proper care, now all these toxic or very harsh substances or suspended particulate matters, such as silica, right? So silica and some of them like dust particles, so they get settled in the lungs. So as they get settled in the lungs, so now what will happen? Either it will cause fibrosis of the lungs or it will cause silicosis of the lungs. Okay. So you have, this is called as occupational respiratory disorder. So if you see the given options here, first one is anthracis. So anthracis is caused by anthrax. Okay. So this does not come with occupational disorder, occupational respiratory disorder. When it comes to silicosis, silicosis is a occupational respiratory disorder, and silicosis is seen in the individual who are especially in the stone polishing industry. So these people who are exposed to grinding of stones or polishing of marbles, so they inhale pieces of silica that are suspended in the air as the polish, which is coming from the stone particle. So it gets deposited in the lungs and it causes a condition called as silicosis, where it is a permanent damage of alveoli or lungs. Okay. Next one is botulism. Botulism is actually caused by a bacteria called as Clostridium. It's a kind of a food infection. So again, it's nothing related to occupational respiratory disorder or respiratory disorder. And emphysema is a condition where a person has a difficulty to breathe. So, okay, so they have shortness of breath because of smoking cigarettes, and the respiratory surface is decreased exceptionally low because of the deposition of tar and etc. So that is why emphysema is also a wrong answer. So when it comes to occupational respiratory disorder, depends upon what environment these people are working in and how it is affecting them. So our option is 2, that is silicosis. Okay, students. So we have your third question. Match the following columns and select the correct option. I will launch the poll. You can check the, okay, 1 second. Yeah, I have launched the poll already. So you can see here, you have options: pneumotaxic center, oxygen dissociation curve, okay, carbonic anhydrase, then primary site for gases exchange, and then you have alveoli, pons region of the brain. Here it should be here. And then you have hemoglobin and RBC. So please choose the right options. And I will give you 10 seconds more extra to solve this question because I've already taken 10 seconds of you. Okay, students, can we answer this question now? So I hope you already have your options. So let's see what's our right options now. So when it comes to our A, so pneumotaxic center is a pontine, pontine respiratory center, which is present in the brain. So what is the role of a pneumotaxic center? Pneumotaxic center actually controls the depth of inspiration, or how much you have to inspire, the rate and the volume of inspiration it will regulate. Okay, so it will limit how much you are taking in the air. So that is called as pneumotaxic respiratory center, which is a pons region, right? So our A is the 2. Okay, next one, oxygen dissociation curve. So when it comes to O2 dissociation curve, so we are talking about how the oxygen binds to the hemoglobin, correct? No? So how the oxygen gets, associated with the hemoglobin, and then what are the factors that influence the oxygen coming out of the hemoglobin? That is why we call it as dissociation, right? So our B, that is oxygen dissociation curve, is with respect to hemoglobin. Why? Because hemoglobin is the one, or a vehicle which carries oxygen molecule, correct? No. Next one is carbonic anhydrase. So carbonic anhydrase is a very important enzyme. So what is the role of carbonic anhydrase? So we have carbon dioxide and we have water in our blood plasma. So usually majority of our carbon dioxide is actually transported in the form of carbonic acid or bicarbonates and H plus ions. So for this, Ca, I will write it as carbonic anhydrase will help, and then it will become carbonic acid, right? And the carbonic acid is in turn converted into, okay, it is in turn converted into H plus bicarbonate, okay, HCO3 or carbonate. Okay, so in this case you can see that the carbonic anhydrase is an enzyme that is actually produced by your red blood cells. Okay, red blood cells will produce carbonic anhydrase, which help in, okay, converting your carbon dioxide into hydrogen ions and bicarbonate, which facilitates in their transportation. Is it clear? So whenever it comes to carbonic anhydrase, you have to know that carbonic anhydrase is produced by who? The red blood cells. All right, so I'll write it here, C. Next one, primary site for gaseous exchange. So we know that we have two important zones in our respiratory system. One is the conduction zone, other one is the respiratory zone, right? Where the gases exchange happens. In conduction zone, we have all our rest of the respiratory organs like nostrils, pharynx, trachea, and then we have larynx and trachea, and then bronchi, bronchioles. So these are all conduction zone. But when it comes to alveoli, this is a junction where the exchange of gases takes place because of its very thin membrane and high capillarity. And a lot of capillaries are intertwined with your alveoli. So that is why it becomes a very primary site for gases exchange. Okay, so I will write it here as 1. So if you just match your options, it should be option 2. Okay, option 2 is the right option. I hope you got this as right. If not, it's all right. So fine. We have our next question, students. Lungs do not collapse between breaths, and some air still remains in the lungs, which can never be expelled because there is negative pressure in the lungs. There is negative intrapleural pressure pulling at the lung walls. There is a positive intrapleural pressure, and then you have pressure in the lungs is higher than the atmospheric pressure. Okay, so you have, I will launch the poll again. I launch the poll again. So you can, oh, sorry, 1 second. You can now answer your questions using the poll. Okay, you have 1 minute to answer, students. Okay, students, your time is up. So let's see which is your right option. Okay, I'll end the poll now. So they're asking, okay, I'll just remove this, wait. Yeah. Lungs do not collapse between the breaths, and some air always remain in the lungs, which can never be expelled because, see, your lung is like a balloon. So what happens whenever you run or whenever you have the requirement to breathe faster, or you want to change the depth and pace, for example, you do force exhalation. Okay, so you have removed excess air than you normally usually do, right? So when you do this, imagine a balloon. So now what happens if a balloon is there and then all the air is removed and then you try to take extra air out of it, like by sucking it, what would happen? The two walls of the balloons would collapse on each other, right? So why this collapsing happens? Because of the negative pressure that exists between the two walls of the balloon, correct, right? So similar case would happen in our lungs too. So whenever we're trying to expire, so when we expire, now we don't have enough air. If we don't have enough air in the lungs, now what will happen at very, very thin junctions like alveolar regions and tertiary bronchial regions, which are very thin, here there is high possibility of your walls experiencing a negative pressure between these walls and the layers. So that is called as negative intrapleural pressure. So whenever this negative intrapleural pressure exists, there is a possibility of your walls, lung walls collapsing on each other. So that is why our body deploys various mechanisms to prevent this. So one of them is the presence of your, the cartilaginous rings in your trachea, bronchi and bronchioles. Next one is the alveoli, which secretes a type of surfactant that will prevent any of the collapsing of the lungs. And moreover, presence of some reserved volume of air in your lungs, okay, so that will help in not collapsing of the lungs, okay, in maintaining that pressure. So that is why our option is, so lungs do not collapse because there is a negative intrapleural pressure pulling at the lung wall. So our option is 2. Okay, fine, students. Next we have our question. So reduction in the pH of blood will. So what will happen if there is a reduction in pH in our blood? We have our 4 options. First option is reduce the blood supply to the brain. Second option is decrease the affinity of hemoglobin with oxygen. And the third option is release bicarbonate ions by the liver. And then we have fourth option, reduce the rate of heartbeat. Okay, so you have your 4 options and I will relaunch the poll again. So you can answer this question in a minute. Okay. So you can use your poll or chat box to answer the questions. All right, friends, the polls are live. You can answer now. All right, students, your time is up. So let's see which is our right option. I'll end the poll now. So apart on the given options that are there for us, so what will happen with the reduction in the pH of the blood? So our first option that is given is reduce the blood supply to the brain. So it actually doesn't happen like that. There is one possibility where your brain reacts to the change in pH. So whenever there is rich or high amounts of carbon dioxide in your body or in your blood, so the carbon dioxide obviously gets converted into bicarbonate and hydrogen ions. So whenever there is hydrogen ion concentration increasing in your blood, your respiratory centers in your medulla oblongata will recognize this based on the chemoreceptors, and they will trigger a signal to your lung or the muscles that are associated with your respiratory system to expire. So here that doesn't happen, like reduce the blood supply to the brain. So that is a wrong option. So our second option, decrease the affinity of the hemoglobin with oxygen. So this is actually correct. So whenever there is a reduction in pH of the blood, so it will directly affect on the affinity of the hemoglobin. The lower the pH, lower the affinity of the hemoglobin will be towards the oxygen. Sorry, lower it will be the affinity of oxygen towards the hemoglobin. Understood? So it has to be higher pH. So as the pH increases, so you have your oxygen which attaches to hemoglobin more. So why it is like this? So whenever there is high reduction in pH, that means what is happening here? There is high concentration of hydrogen ions. So when there is high concentration of hydrogen ions, that means the carbon dioxide levels are very, very high. When carbon dioxide levels are very high, usually the solubility of carbon dioxide and affinity is quite higher compared to that of oxygen. So that is why it will decrease the affinity of oxygen with hemoglobin. Okay. So when it comes to release bicarbonate ions by the liver, so this doesn't make any sense with respect to the given question. So our third option is wrong. So reduce the rate of heartbeat. So usually what happens whenever there is reduction in the pH level, actually it increases the rate of heartbeat. It does not reduce the rate of heartbeat. Correct? No, because it has to supply more and more blood, more and more oxygen to the tissues. Obviously, there is high amount of your carbon dioxide in the blood. That is why we have reduction in the pH. So when there is high carbon dioxide concentration already in the blood, your heart is trying to fix as much oxygen as possible to your tissues. So that is why the rate increases, not decreases. So our fourth option is also wrong. So our correct option is true. Okay. So let us see the next question. When you hold your breath, which of the following gas changes in blood would first lead to the urge to breathe? So we have our options: falling of O2 concentration, rising carbon dioxide concentration, falling carbon dioxide concentration, rising carbon dioxide and falling oxygen concentration. Okay, fine. I will launch the poll again, students, so you can use this and answer this question in a minute. Okay. All right, students, your time is up. So I will end the poll now. Okay, let's end the poll. So let's see if your answers are correct or not. So let's see what happens when I hold my breath. Now, what is happening? I'm not inhaling, obviously. And now what's happening here in my body already, my tissues are trying to give the amount, whatever the carbon dioxide they have, it gets exchanged with my blood. So in my blood, there is rise in carbon dioxide concentration. As there is a rise in carbon dioxide concentration, the carbon dioxide is broken down into, it's converted into carbonic acid, and then carbonic acid is again converted into your hydrogen ions and bicarbonates. So what is the pH? Whenever you talk about acidity or acidic pH, you talk about the rise in H plus ions, isn't it? So when carbon dioxide, right, when carbon dioxide is converted into H plus ions, okay, and then we have HCO3, that is the bicarbonate. Okay, so whenever this hydrogen ion concentration keeps on increasing, our respiratory centers, especially which is present in the medulla oblongata, so we have dorsal respiratory group and ventral respiratory group. That's not necessary. So in dorsal respiratory group, there are chemoreceptors which will recognize this rise in H plus concentration. Okay, so whenever it recognizes this rise in H plus concentration, it will start cutting the signals to your external intercostal muscles as well as diaphragm. So when it cuts the signal for your external intercostal muscles and diaphragm, now these will start relaxing. When these will start relaxing, your the thoracic volume starts decreasing. When the thoracic volume starts decreasing, it's like just squeezing your chest so that you will get higher urge to breathe out. Okay, so here you have to understand one thing. When I said that we are not inspiring, that doesn't mean that we don't have yeah, of course we don't have oxygen, but is the oxygen levels recognized in our body? Definitely no. What is happening here? The rise in pH is recognized because of the rise in carbon dioxide concentration. So oxygen do not come in play here in regulating the rate of respiration. What is coming in play here? The carbon dioxide concentration is coming in play. So that is why whenever there is rising carbon dioxide concentration, so whenever we hold breath, that will carbon dioxide will increase. When carbon dioxide will increase, H plus ion, concentration will increase, and it will be recognized by our respiratory centers in the brain. So when our respiratory centers recognize this increase in H plus concentration because of the rise in carbon dioxide concentration, so that will make you to expire or breathe faster, to supply as much as oxygen to your body, or in vice versa, you can take it as or remove as much carbon dioxide as possible from your blood so that your your body can react normally. Okay, so our answer for this question is rising carbon dioxide concentration. Okay, all right, so we have our next question. Which one, hold on, yeah, which one of the following is the correct statement for respiration in humans? So we have our options. Cigarette smoking may lead to inflammation of bronchi. Neural signals from the pneumotaxic center in pons region of the brain can increase the duration of inspiration. Workers in grinding and stone breaking industries may suffer from lung fibrosis. About 90% of the carbon dioxide is carried by hemoglobin as carboxyhemoglobin. So we have our options, we have our questions. So now I will launch your poll. Okay, so let's see. I launch a poll. So you have 1 minute to answer this question. Now you can answer. Three. Perfect. So we have your answer and the time is up to. So let's end the poll and see if your answer is right. So let me not keep a lot of suspense. Yeah, Prithviraj, you have raised your hands. I hope your name is right. Anyways, just put it in the chat box. What's your concern? But your answer is right. Let me acknowledge that. Okay. So what are the answer you have given? Like you have chosen answer as 3. That is workers grinding and stone breaking industries may suffer from lung fibrosis. So this is the correct option when it comes to the respiratory disorders or respiratory or respiration in humans. Sorry. So let's see the first option. Cigarette smoking may lead to inflammation of bronchi. So usually inflammation of bronchi or bronchioles is seen in asthma. So cigarette smoking is mostly leading to a condition called as emphysema. So when it comes to second option, that is neural signals from the pneumotaxic centers in the pons region of the brain increases the duration of inspiration. So it's actually reverse, actually decreases the duration of inspiration. So by regulating the rate of respiration. And third option is correct. Anyways, we know that. But when it comes to about 90% of the carbon dioxide is carried by the hemoglobin as carboxyhemoglobin. It's up to 20 to 25% of the carbon dioxide is transported as carboxyhemoglobin. Majority of it is transported as bicarbonate form. Okay, so option 3 is right. Okay, So we have another question. Two friends are eating together on a dining table. One of them suddenly starts coughing while swallowing some food. This coughing would have been due to improper movement of. So I will relaunch the poll again. Okay. So you can use the poll or chat box. You can answer the question. So I will, yeah, you can answer the question. Okay. All right, so our time is up. Let's end the polls. So we know what options you have given. So anyways, let's see if your option is right. So see, two friends are eating together on a dining table, and suddenly, you start coughing, and you're swallowing some food while you swallow some food. So this coughing would be due to improper. So usually when we laugh or when we talk or when we get excited, you feel that some of your food particles have, gone into your windpipe, and suddenly it makes a tremendous amount of burning sensation, and you keep coughing until everything comes out. Or some of your elders would have told you to look up, okay, to look up when you keep coughing. So why do you do that? Is because usually whenever there is a confusion state, okay, while like we are or laughing too much or talking too much, or when we get excited too much, so when we breathe and swallow spontaneously in a second gap, so the movement of epiglottis is quite impaired. So whenever there is a quite impairment in epiglottis movement, that is what leads us to this coughing and teary eyes and all that things. So the answer for this question is 4. Okay, the improper movement of your epiglottis will leads to coughing. So what is epiglottis basically? So we have in our respiratory system, so we have nose, isn't it? So we have nose, we have nostrils, and through nostrils we have, okay, we have our pharynx, and we have nasopharynx, okay, and then we have oropharynx, and then we have laryngopharynx. See here the laryngopharynx, you can see that here there is food, this is windpipe, and this is food pipe, okay. So let's say that there is a flap like structure like this called as epiglottis, and this entrance is called as glottis, okay, this epiglottis. So whenever we swallow, our tongue will put some pressure on this epiglottis so that it will close over the glottis. So when the tongue pressures our epiglottis so that it closes on the glottis, now what happens is it blocks the passage of windpipe so that the food can go through the food pipe instead of entering into the windpipe. So our option for this question, epiglottis, is right. So we understood what is epiglottis. It is a cartilaginous flap-like structure which closes over the glottis, preventing the entry of food from food pipe to windpipe. Okay. So let's see the next question. Select the favorable conditions required for the formation of oxyhemoglobin at the alveoli. Okay. So we have our option as high partial pressure of O2, high partial pressure of CO2, high hydrogen ion, less hydrogen ion, high temperature. So low partial pressure of O2, low partial pressure of carbon dioxide, more hydrogen ion, higher temperature. High partial pressure of O2, low partial pressure of carbon dioxide, less hydrogen ion, lower temperature. Low partial pressure of O2, high partial pressure of carbon dioxide, more hydrogen ions, and higher temperature. Here are your options. So I launch the poll now. Okay. So you can answer the question now. Students from the YouTube, you can use your chat box to answer the question. I'll keep looking at it. Okay. All right, students, our time is up. So let's see which is our right option. Okay. So I'll end the polls now. Let's see if we have the right option. So, 1 second. Yeah. Anyways, so they're asking about what are the favorable conditions required for formation of oxyhemoglobin at alveoli. So what happens? We have our alveoli, okay, and then here we have our blood vessel, okay. We have our blood capillaries. Let's say blood capillaries. So whenever we breathe in, right? Whenever we breathe in, what air? Atmospheric air. So now what happens? The concentration of O2 is high. Whenever the concentration of O2 is high, the partial pressure of O2 is also high. Correct? No? What is partial pressure? Whenever there is high concentration of a certain element as a gas, so it applies certain pressure on the walls of the chamber. So that is called as partial pressure, and it helps in movement of gases. Okay. So now, since in the atmospheric air, the concentration of oxygen is high, that leads to higher concentration of partial pressure. So it's the first thing. So now what happens here? There is high partial pressure of O2. Correct? No. So what about carbon dioxide in the air? So in our atmospheric air, the concentration of carbon dioxide is very, very less. Correct? No. It's almost less than 2%. So that's why the partial pressure of carbon dioxide in the alveoli is actually less, correct? No, compared to that of oxygen. So when you take the conditions of how the oxyhemoglobin forms, so we need a lesser pH and a lower temperature to facilitate the association of oxygen to the hemoglobin molecule to produce oxyhemoglobin. So that is why we need high partial pressure of O2, low partial pressure of carbon dioxide, less hydrogen ion concentration, as well as lower temperature to facilitate oxygen to combine from hemoglobin to form oxyhemoglobin. Clear? So let's see what is our next question. Select the correct events that occurs during inspiration. Okay, contraction of diaphragm, contraction of external intercostal muscles, pulmonary volume decreases, intrapulmonary pressure increases. So you have your 4 options. The first option is C and D, and second option is A, B, and D, and third option is only D, and fourth option is A and D. Okay, so I will launch the poll, students. You can answer this question within a minute. Okay, your polls are live now. All right, students. So I will end your polls now. And moreover, it's a very, very direct question for us. Okay. So let's see the explanation for the right answers, and we'll see what is the right answer. So select the correct options, with respect to events, with respect to inspiration is our question. So let's see the first option, contraction of diaphragm. Yes, does the contraction of diaphragm happens during inspiration? Definitely yes. So the contraction of the diaphragm leads to the movement of diaphragm in the anterior posterior direction. So as it moves to the posterior direction, so now what will happen? It will increase the pulmonary capacity or pulmonary or thoracic volume. When it increases the thoracic volume, that will help the air to move from atmosphere into the lungs. Next one, contraction of external intercostal muscles. Yes, external intercostal muscles are, if you have ribs like this, okay, so there are some fibroelastic muscles that are present. Okay, so these contractory muscles are basically, they can contract and relax. So the one muscles which are to the outside are called as external intercostal muscles, that is the muscles between the ribs. So what happens, their contractions will lead to movement of ribs upward and forward. again, which leads to the increase in thoracic, thoracic volume. So this is also a correct option. So when you see the third option, pulmonary volume decreases. Okay, so pulmonary volume, it does not decrease, correct? No. So the pulmonary volume actually increases. Next one, intrapulmonary pressure increases. So intrapulmonary pressure actually decreases. So our option is A and B only. That is the fourth option. Okay. Fine, people. So we have the another question. So the next question is the total lung capacity, that is TLC, is the volume of air accommodated in the lungs at the end of forced inspiration. So this includes RV plus IC, that is inspiratory capacity, plus expiratory capacity, and ERV, that is expiratory reserve volume. Then you have your second option, RV, ERV, IC, and EC. Okay. So this is EC is expiratory capacity, IC is inspiratory capacity. Similarly, RV is reserved volume. Okay. Next one, RV plus ERV plus VC and FRC, functional residual capacity, FRC4. Then you have fourth option, that is RV, ERV, TV, and IRV. So what is total lung capacity? You just have to tell what are the factors that you have to add up to give rise to total lung capacity. So I will relaunch the poll. Okay. So you can answer this question in a minute, less than a minute. Actually, it's a very direct question. All right, students. So I will end the poll now. Okay. We had sufficient time because it's a direct question. So I'll end the poll and let's see if you have already figured out the right answer. So we know that what is total lung capacity. So it is the air accommodated in the lungs after forced, by the end of forced inspiration, you expire. And then you keep on adding up more and more air in and you finish the forced expiration. And what is total volume that is present? So total lung capacity, okay, total lung capacity can be given as residual volume plus expiratory reserve volume plus inspiratory reserve volume plus tidal volume. Okay, so if you add all of this, you will get total lung capacity. It's a very, very direct question, and the option is 4. Okay. So we have the next question. Tidal volume and expiratory reserve volume of an athlete is 500 ml and 1000 ml respectively. What will be the expiratory capacity if the residual volume is 1200 ml? And our options are 2700 ml, 1500 ml, 1700 ml, and 2200 ml. Okay. I launched the polls for you students now. Okay. You can answer this question. Okay. All right, students, our time is up. So let's see if you have the right option. So tidal volume and expiratory reserve volume is given of an athlete, that is 500 ml and 1000 ml respectively. So what will be the expiratory capacity they're asking? So it's a very, very direct question. So you should not get tempted with the third thing that they have given. Okay. If you know the formula, that is expiratory capacity, okay, or EC is equals to what? You can call it as tidal volume plus you have expiratory reserve capacity or ERC, okay, or expiratory reserve volume, ERV, correct? No. So if you add these two, you will get expiratory capacity. So according to our question, what has given? What is our tidal volume of an athlete? Is 500 ml. So we'll put 500 ml here. And then what is our expiratory reserve volume? Expiratory reserve volume is given as 1000 ml. So add 1000 ml here. Okay, don't get tempted by 1200 ml. Okay, so we will get directly 1500 ml. So our option 2 is correct. Okay, so EC is equals to TV plus ERV, and it is very, very, very essential for you to remember all the lung capacities and their formulas. So this will help you, because most of the questions that comes in any of the competitive examinations is based on lung capacities. Okay, all right, students. So we have another question. Select the correct statement. Expiration occurs due to external intercostal muscles. Intrapulmonary pressure is lower than the atmospheric pressure during inspiration. Inspiration occurs when atmospheric pressure is less than the intrapulmonary pressure. Expiration is initiated due to the contraction of diaphragm. Okay. So I will launch the poll now. You can answer the question, and you can take a minute to answer this question as usual. Yeah, your polls are live. All right, students, your time is up. I'm going to end the polls now. Okay, I'll end the poll. So let's see which of the options are right for us. So select the correct option. We have to pick the correct option. So let's see the first option. Expiration occurs due to the external intercostal muscles. What is happening for the expiration is a passive process. Both your external intercostal muscles as well as the diaphragm, they collapse. They come to the relaxation state because your neurological signals cut off. Okay, because of your respiratory centers in the brain, which tells them nothing. So when they tell them nothing, both your external intercostal muscles and diaphragm, they collapse, and that will lead to expiration process, which is very passive. So that is why our first option is wrong. And then when it comes to second option, intrapulmonary pressure is lower than the atmospheric pressure during the inspiration. So what happens? Intrapulmonary pressure is lower or higher. So whenever we try to increase the, whenever we want to bring the air in, usually the intrapulmonary pressure is higher than the atmospheric pressure, isn't it? So our option 2 is also wrong. So when it comes to third option, inspiration occurs when atmospheric pressure is less than intrapulmonary pressure. So this option is correct. So whenever the inspiration has to happen, atmospheric pressure has to be less than intrapulmonary pressure. That is when the inspiration will get initiated. And when it comes to fourth option, expiration is initiated due to contraction of diaphragm. This is wrong. Why this is wrong? Because it is relaxation of diaphragm, and it is not initiated. It is not initiated by the contraction or relaxation of the diaphragm. It is initiated again by the respiratory centers. So that will lead to relaxation of your diaphragm as well as the external intercostal muscles. So that will lead to expiration process. Okay, so we have our next question. The maximum volume of air a person can breathe in after a forced expiration is known as expiratory capacity, vital capacity, and inspiratory capacity, and total lung capacity. Okay, so I'll relaunch the poll. You can answer this question in a minute. It is a very direct question, students. All right, students, I'm gonna end the poll because it's a very, very direct question, and we shouldn't take much time to answer direct questions, which are like definitions of certain things. So the question says, one second, I'll end the poll. Yeah. The maximum volume of air, see, maximum volume of air a person can breathe in after forced expiration, right? After forced expiration, what is the maximum amount of air a person can breathe in? That is nothing but your vital capacity. Okay. So our option 2 is right. What is vital capacity? The maximum volume of air a person can breathe in after forced expiration is known as vital capacity. Okay, students. So our option 2 is correct. All right. So here we have our last question. Match the items given in column 1 with those that of the column 2 and select the correct options given below. So we have in our column 1 tidal volume, okay, and our inspirator reserve volume, expirator reserve volume, and residual volume, and the respective volumes are given like 2500 to 3000 ml, 1100 to 1200 ml, 500 to 550 ml, 1000 to 1100 ml. Okay, so you can go through this and choose the right option, and I will give you 1 minute exactly for this question. Okay, so your poll is live. You can answer the questions now. All right, students, our time is up. So I'm going to end the polls now. So let us check for the right option. Okay, let me end the poll. Yes. So what is tidal volume? So tidal volume is the amount of air that is inspired or expired during a normal breathing process. So that is equivalent to 500 to 550 ml. So that is why it is A here. So the third one is A. Next one, inspiratory reserve volume. So inspiratory reserve volume is how much of air you can inspire forcefully. That is called as inspiratory reserve volume. So that is equivalent to 2500 to 3000 ml. So our option is B here. So when it comes to expiratory reserve volume, after normal inspiration, how much of air you can forcefully expire, which is called as expiratory reserve volume. So that is equivalent to 1000 to 1100 ml. And when it comes to residual volume, so this is the amount of air that is left in your lungs after forced expiration. So then you have residual volume, which is equivalent to 1100 to 1200 ml. So we have our D. So let's match here. A is 3, B is 1, and then C is 4, D is 2. So our option 2 is correct. Okay, students. So here we have come to the end of problem solving video session, especially with the previous year questions. So if you have any doubts, you can reach out to us in the chat box or in the coming up classes. For now, thank you very much, students. I'll see you in the next class. See you.